Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I hope you guys are not having too bad of winter weather if you're in this east side of the country, north part of the northeast part of the country, but it seems to be all over the place. Of course, the Canadians, you're kind of used to that, aren't you? Maybe you're not. I don't know. I know several of my buddies in Canada have been telling me they've had a lot of snow this year, even before the expo. And so I want to talk about several things this evening, and I hope that you have a lot of questions for me. I see several of our members in the crowd, so you guys make sure to ask your questions. But in the future, we're looking to have several guests as well. And I'd like to hear your suggestions on people that you'd like to see for maybe 30 minutes or more that would you'd like to see contribute onto this live stream. We like to bring them on, interview them, and just see how they're keeping bees and all that kind of stuff. But I want to say first and foremost, we're excited to announce that in addition to having Chris on the team, that we are going to, as of Monday, have Josh Voorhees, who many of you may not know, but if you've been at the expo and you've paid really good attention, Josh is usually at the merch booth with my family. Laurel and Josh and my mom and all of them are up there. And usually Josh is really helping Laurel out with all the merch booth logistics. Josh has been with us like every stinking year and helped us out on the side, and each year increasingly more and more. Now he's going to be helping us full time, and we really need it. Chris and I have been busting our rear ends this year, and so is Laurel. And there's just a lot of growth and a lot more things that people I think would enjoy at the expo. Josh is going to be helping us do that, and also help us produce more videos and stuff like that by freeing up some time. And so, really excited to have you on, Josh, if you're watching. And we are very excited about the future. Okay, have you guys thought about doing a honeybee themed tattoo show? What would I know about tattoos? I mean, I've got scars. That's the only tattoos that I've got. And the worst one being when I was, I don't know, 16 or 17, I had a really good Kershaw saw. Anyways, it wasn't a Kershaw, it was a Gerber, excuse me. And I was cutting through some cedar and I was just being an idiot. And I cut really well through my left hand. I could see my knuckle, and it really hampered my mandolin playing for a couple of years. It took a couple of years for it to loosen up properly in my index finger to where I could play mandolin the way I could before. So no tattoos, no tattoos. A shop's going to be there. I think the liability on that might be extreme. I have no clue. So, welcome, Josh. We want to grow. We have a lot of different plans, and there's a lot of things in the works. So, we're trying to figure out what's the best direction. More and more, as the conference has grown, as the YouTube channel and the following has grown, we feel a greater responsibility towards the beekeeping industry, and we should be shifting our focus. I should be shifting my focus to that, helping other people versus maybe my personal ambitions, which at one point was running 1,000+ colonies. And I think that there's other things that I should be doing now. So we're going to be focusing on downsizing the apiary. I will be selling nukes this year, but a lot of that is going to be to downsize what I have. I have too many hives. Trying to get down to about 60 production hives and then a few backups here and there. Also, I'll be speaking at the Midwest Honeybee Expo. That's coming up here in February. I believe it's the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, or the 3rd and 4th. Yeah, sorry. I have to look at the dates, but that's in Madison, Wisconsin, and I'll be one of the speakers there. I'm really looking forward to that. There's going to be several of my buddies there as well, like David Peck. Oh, goodness. There's going to be several of the speakers that we've had in the past, some good folks. Thanks, Chris, for bringing that up online. So, you got David Burns, you got Zach Lamas, James Hillmeyer, Christie with Project Apis M. Yep, there's David Peck. There's Corhan, John Hill. Well, no lineup is perfect. I know what that's like. You have several good people on this list. And of course, the Beekeeping Today podcast will be there. And I just love getting to hang out with Becky and Jeff. Very nice folks. So maybe if you're in the neighborhood, stop by and say hello. The nice thing about if I'm speaking at an event, I actually have a lot more time to talk to people. Didn't really have any time at my show this year, and that's just how it goes. We want to talk in this video also about what new beekeepers should be doing, um, what we're looking for to transition from winter to spring, that job going from the early brood period, the first brood, and building it to strong colonies and keeping them from swarming. We can talk a little bit about sugar bricks, fondant, mountain camp sugar, and a few other odds and ends. So that's what I'm going to try to cover in tonight's live chat. Thanks for bringing that up, Chris. That's the nucleus colonies, and these are young queens, and the combs are in really good shape. You can expect a really nice, strong nuke from us, and we're shooting towards the 25th of April, and usually we're really close to that, usually dead on. But to first come, first serve, they go pretty quick, and I'm not doing as many this year. Hey, Eric, sounds good. I'll announce it if I'm going to do some singles, and I'll let you know. I probably am interested in getting rid of some singles, to be honest. I need to get rid of some woodenware also. So as we get a little bit closer, once we start getting to about mid-February, third week of February, I'll really know what I have and what I'm going to be able to do. Okie doke. So, they let okay, Melissa's going to be teaching. Okay, I thought it was Tom giving a talk, and I'm like, no one's going to show up for that. But Melissa will do a great job, and Tom can learn some things. Is it the 6th and 7th? What is the date on that, Chris? Okay, it's the 6th and 7th. I don't know where I got those dates from. See, you got to watch these YouTube people. 6th and 7th. If you show up on the 4th and the 5th, or the 3rd or the 4th, you're going to be a little disappointed. I won't be there. 6th and 7th. That's good. I need a little bit more time. I don't know if I'm going to do any Corey Queens again. So what we're trying to do is just downsize everything. And while we did make good money selling nukes, I mean, reasonable amount of money with it, we just look at things we could have done with the Bee Expo, and then beyond that, industry level needs that we could be contributing and assisting people with. And I want to talk about that here in a little bit as well. It's maybe in a very important moment in our history where I want to try to do something that we've never done before in this industry. Awesome. Yeah. I'm glad to hear that, Eric. I appreciate you getting bees from us, and I'll be talking with you. It's just really hard with all the logistics of all this stuff. And we really have a lot of goals to work on the industry level of things that can really help everyone out, whether you're a hobby beekeeper or a commercial beekeeper. I think there's a lot of missed opportunities that have been going on for a couple decades or more in this industry. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be doing better. So I was thinking about doing that, and we had talked about that. And I think we're just going to pass on that. It's just so much work doing the nukes, and we really want to focus on more videos. We want to focus on more education and industry level stuff. And so I really do hate it. I go back and forth on it all the time, and it's frustrating. I've got all the tools. I've done it long enough that I feel like I'm starting to learn how to make it a smooth process. And it's just we don't have enough. It's easier to find somebody to help me with the expo stuff and to grow the expo than it is to do that. And so I guess while we're talking about this, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what I'm hoping to do in the future. And you guys know me, I hope to do a lot of things, and sometimes it doesn't work out. And I hope that you guys maybe will also be encouraged by that, because we don't always get it right the first time. And sometimes our ideas just don't work out. It's how life is. And I keep swinging at the ball and hoping that I'll eventually connect and maybe hit a home run or at least a single. But life likes to throw curveballs. So I've spent a decent bit of time going all the way to the upper echelons of the industry, as far as I see it, going to Denmark to Apamondia. I had a meeting with the former president of the ABF, and we had a great conversation. Her and her husband, Lance, um, Patty and Lance seemed like really nice folks. Remind me a lot of the people that I hung around growing up and learned a lot from. And then also went to the American honey producers in December. That's part of the reason I barely had my voice, is I really wore it out there. And there was a lot of industry level stuff there, state inspectors. There was a lot of things going on. People, researchers, of course, some of the best commercial beekeepers as well. You're talking to guys that are running 80,000 hives, 20,000 hives, 30,000 hives. But what I've come to realize is these people are really good commercial beekeepers, and they're so busy running their businesses, they're not, no one is doing some of the unique things that I think really need to be done in this industry. We should have people that are going and fighting to get outside dollars. And I'm not a huge fan of federally funded anything. I think the government's really good at wasting our tax dollars. And I think that usually what they're involved in, they usually stink it up pretty good. However, they're using our tax dollars and we're playing expensive games. And I'll get to some beekeeping questions soon, I promise. But this is, I think, very important. And I talked a little bit about this at the conference. But the problem of it is let's say we want to get something through the regulatory system. Let's say it's a great product that helps de-stress our bees, helps control viruses, helps control mites, whatever it is. It's millions of dollars to do this. And the companies that have this money to invest often are looking at other places to invest. And beekeeping doesn't look appealing. There's a lot of people that'll say, "Oh, there's so many conspiracies in beekeeping." There is not. I know pretty much everybody. I know the owners of the companies, most of the companies, and I've met them. And it's just basically, hey, if we're going to invest $5 million, $10 million into an industry, why would we do it in beekeeping? It's a small industry. We could do the same amount of work, same amount of employees, go somewhere else and make 100 times the potential profit. And so this is one of the reasons I feel like we have such slow innovation, especially in the miticide realm, where I hope that we can see products that don't stress out our bees. There's products that I call the hammer method, and that's products like thymol and formic, and they're very natural products. When they break down, it's very organic. There's really nothing wrong with it from that standpoint, but the initial dose is a little rough on the bees and the mites. And if you do it correctly, everything's good, and you can be successful with those. I use them all the time. However, there is an effect on the bees, and it does slow them down and can have some issues. Whereas a product like the Varroa product, and yet to be determined how effective that is, we have high hopes that and maybe future evolutions of stuff like that, which is not genetically modified, which doesn't contaminate anything. The worst thing I guess that could happen is if you fed it right before your honey flow with honey supers on and the sugar syrup get into the supers. So you're not supposed to feed it like that anyways, for multiple reasons. You need to feed it early enough to where the bees can get it into the entire colony, into that brood food and into the bees really well without it getting diluted by a bunch of nectar. But that is a surgical tool where it's not stressing our bees out in the process of eliminating stressors. And so I really do like that thought. And with tropolalaps in Europe, now it could be 10 years out, it could be 10 months out. We don't know. But when I mentioned history earlier, what I want to do is help somebody. And that's what been looking for. And I'm not finding a whole lot of people. There are some, but I want to help people who are working on this and maybe start some in areas that no one else is working in, because this is a big issue. And I hope that we have a lot of time. I've thought about it a lot. And we need to begin now. When it came to varroa, tracheal mites, they really affected our industry massively. And small hive beetles have been no picnic. And we have other stressors like yellow leg and hornet that are in South Carolina and Georgia. And these stressors make it harder on beekeepers and the bees themselves, and sometimes other things. Yellow-legged hornets are not just going to affect honeybees, that's for sure. Any of your bird watching friends, any of your buddies that like other types of bees or butterflies, it's going to affect them severely as well. So we need to be reaching out to these groups. We need to forge alliances, and we need to get energy put into solutions that are going to help all of us and help native insects as well as honeybees, which are an important part of our food system. A lot of people can complain about that, but without honeybees, we all better start growing our own gardens, because uh, the commercial industry of agriculture depends heavily on honeybees. And it's not just your main stuff like almonds and oranges. It's also, I like to plant onions. Josh is actually planting onion seeds right now, because this is when you start. And honeybees pollinate onion seeds, and it's really important for the yield. So there's a lot of little jobs that don't get the press of apple orchards getting pollinated and blueberries that are really important that honeybees do. Impacts our entire infrastructure. So we need to work together with other countries who are also wanting to work on this project, because it's going to affect the Canadians, it's going to affect us. It's already affecting parts of Europe and will continue to do so, and so on and so forth. So as beekeepers, we all must work together for these issues. We want to rally behind anyone who's doing good work, and we want to create some opportunities for people to assist us as well. And that's where I want to shift away from working bees so much myself, because I can't do both. And so that's tough. I don't really want to give that up, but I think I need to do that. And the RNAi is, I know some people don't like it, and the prices are high on it right now. I've talked to the folks. I actually have a meeting with them. Hey, Josh, onions do make everything better, unless you're Chris Medeiros. Then onions maybe don't make things better. We have a funny thing going on.
Ew, onions.
Yeah. Chris is not the onion guy, unless it's ground up so fine and imperceptible, you just don't know. But the RNAi technology, I think, could be great for helping beekeepers deal with the tropicalaps. It's a math problem, and I've said this before. Varroa takes a certain amount of time to build up to a threshold where it just takes the bees out. And then you have tropicalaps, which reproduces significantly faster, which creates more labor for the beekeeper and more treatments on the hive, which stresses them out. So we've got to get smarter, and we just can't expect these things to fix themselves. And so for the first time in history, I want the United States and any other country that is willing to work with us on this project, United States beekeepers, rather, to lead the charge on protecting ourselves from a pest before it gets here. And hopefully we can, in the process of doing that, help Canadian beekeepers, European beekeepers, and beekeepers around the world, who will probably at some point be dealing with this pest. So I've been literally praying for time and for the right people to come into my life, because there's a lot of skills that I don't have, and I've got to work overtime to make sure that I can get smarter every day. Because heck, there's just a lot of things I don't know, and it wasn't that long ago we didn't know how to run a conference either. And there's a few people that still say we don't know how to do that, Chris. Um,
yeah, the list is shrinking.
The list is shrinking, and we just don't get up, and those people have never been to our conference either, funny enough. All right, Chris, let's get to some of the folks' questions in here and make sure.
Yeah, I got a couple for you early on.
Okay.
I do have a couple that people have emailed in on your website. If you guys don't know, there is a spot on the website where they can submit questions for live chat. So I'll pull some of those up and have them ready for you.
Cool.
Here's a quick statement for you.
All right, hey, Ricky. The book Blake and you wrote is a great book for all aspects and sizes of outfits. I used your dollar as a bookmark. Oh, that's awesome, Ricky. Thank you for coming to the show, and thank you for purchasing the book. There's not a lot of people I would co-author a book with. When Blake had already had a lot of stuff begun, and he sent it over to me as kind of, this is what he was going for, and I really think that he had a good idea. So Blake gets the majority of the credit. But I definitely thought it was a great project, and I was really glad to be a part of it. And there's a lot of folks out there who ask what the book's about, and it's just, we try to get straight to the point. In my live chats, I ramble, tell stories, and make jokes, mostly at Chris and other people. And In the book, we really wanted to just this is how you split. Here's the nuances of splitting. Watch out for this, and we try to be as you know encompassing of all the nuances as possible. I filled my hive with a ton of sugar at the beginning of December. Do you think they're good? Had a full super of honey, but not much in the deeps at the end of summer. So at the end of summer, I would what is that, like September odd? So I don't know where you're at, Brandon, and so maybe you all shut down a lot earlier than I do. I'm checking bees even in November typically, but I'm in Tennessee, and so in October and September, I can still feed 2 to 1 to my hives very, very easily. And I don't feed a lot of sugar bricks. I do videos on it because, people ask questions and stuff. But if you have a ton of sugar on there, they should be fine. If they had a whole super and a ton of sugar, they should be fine. I just saw someone today on a post who added fondant yesterday, and the way that they had described how much they had been feeding, I'm like, you know, why are people feeding this much in the wintertime? And I'm not picking on you at all. I think this is just something that the more you keep bees, the more that you will figure out what is a safe amount of food for your area. So, because I think a lot of people are feeding because they're not sure. And so they end up feeding an extra 5 pounds or 10 pounds of food that's not necessary. And this is why I think, if you get a cool day, but it's still warm enough to get into your hives, it's 55, 60 degrees, pop them open. I don't care if it's December. You may not get that weather. We totally do. And you just kind of observe what's going on. I opened up some lids 2 days ago. They don't have any insulation. They're just a migratory lid, two hives next to each other, and they just had a great cluster, about the size of a basketball. But I fed them up really good, and they're just in a single brood box each. They're singles, and they look fantastic. But I can look down in there and I can see that there's some capped honey still to the right and left of them. And I made sure they went into winter with about 90%, 85% of that single full of capped honey or sugar syrup. And so I don't have to worry about feeding those things any fondant. And that'll be good. And even if some of them do get a little light, I'll have some warm weather, I know, in my area in February, and I'll be fine. So just if you have longer winters, that's where it's tricky. I don't have experience with that. There's not a month I typically can't get into my hives. And heck, I'll get into hives if it's 40 degrees, 35 degrees. If I know the bees are light, I'll crack that lid and I'll throw a little bit of fondant in them or whatever I need, but I rarely do that anymore. So sorry for the long answer on that. They should be good, but if you get a nice little warm spell, get in there and check. That's how you learn. Um, and 10 pounds of sugar goes a really long way. And Chris looked like he was struggling with having to pass out those dollars, so I just let him keep it. We appreciate that, Eric. Chris works hard, and he's just thinking about all the Skyline chili dogs that he could purchase with those dollars. Well, I mean, that's what you get, Mike. I mean, if beekeeping wasn't gambling enough, then you had to go and get a lottery ticket. So, but some you can't win if you don't play, is what they say. I put 2 pounds of Hive Live and 2 pounds of Dadent, and they still haven't started on the Honey Super. Yeah. And, bees are pretty efficient at, so it's when they really start raising brood heavily. So the difference in food consumption of what my bees are doing now and then in December versus what they're going to do in late February and early March on those cold spells. I mean, it can be really cold towards the end of March, depending on the weather. But when they have 3 to 4 frames of brood going and they've got to keep that warm, then that's when they really burn through the resources. Typically, I see colonies starve in Tennessee in March. If I want to see them starve, it's in March because that's right after they've geared up for brood in February. They're going to make it through the early period. So I've been doing bees 20 something years in Tennessee, and that's just, excuse me, something that you learn over time, just observing your bees in your area. We have any more questions, Chris? No, I wouldn't, Alex. And that's one of the problems with genetic diversity. Bees want to be extremely genetically diverse. That's how they work. And they like everything needs to have genetic diversity to be healthy. I mean, just ask the folks from Arkansas. And I got to really take it easy on those Arkansas people. I was mean to them at the expo too. Just ask the folks from East Bernstein, Kentucky. How about that? And but that genetic diversity bees tremendously need. They could have dozens of different genetics being represented by one queen. Not all of those are going to have those same traits. And the more, and we've seen this with different lines that universities and different organizations have produced in the past with these hybrid queens, these VSH queens. Corey does his differently. That's right. That's right. And you definitely, the bees want that genetic diversity, so it's difficult. And nature, these bees haven't dealt with varroa all their existence. This is a very new pest for honeybees, and so I personally think that it's going to be very difficult to ever have an industry that is 100% treatment free. That doesn't mean that we try, but the intensity of keeping a few hives in a backyard versus trying to take bees to pollinate orchards and load them onto the truck and move them around, and that's just, and also there's a difference on location on how much mites reproduce in an area. Southern states reproduce more mites, and so there's just a lot to the problem, and it's not a one size fits all. Now, just like in the clip with Bruce Jean, I think beekeepers should look into better bees. I think it's really important. Genetics is always part of the solution, but for most people, it's not going to be the whole solution. And so there's Corey Stevens queens out there. There's Randy Oliver's Golden West queens. And I think it's just important for anyone who's wanting to do treatment free to also monitor them and just, make sure that your bees are okay. And if they don't need treated, perfect. And if they do, get rid of the ones that don't make the grade. And that way you can continue to hone in on that. But, if you have a beekeeper that just runs 3-banded Italians half a mile from you or even further away than that, it's going to be really hard, because if you have a queen that goes out and mates, there's a good chance she's going to get some of those genetics, and that's going to water down what you're trying to do. Oh, Sawmill Charlie's in the house. He just had a birthday. It was a handful of days ago. So late happy birthday again, Charlie.
I got a question for you if you're ready for me.
Yep. Go ahead.
All right. This came in from Cayman's website. If you guys go out to the website, you can submit beekeeping questions, and we'll pull them in during the live chat. I'll give a little kudos to the one, the only, Mr. Frederick Dunn, for that fun little idea. He probably wasn't the first one, but I'll just give him the credit.
Frederick Dunn asked this question?
No. He does that on his live streams as he brings in people's questions.
Well, we're not fancy like Fred is.
No, I didn't say that. Okay, so this is from David Barnett. He said, "Hi, Cayman. I'm a third-year beekeeper in Northeast Oregon, and I went into winter with 60 colonies. Thinking about this next spring and expanding into some new yards. With this, I've been asking landowners and have been surprised at how many people already have colonies on their farms. I worried about that because I might underestimate the density of beekeepers in my area, and I'm slightly discouraged about the potential to find yards and continue my journey in bees. Any tips or motivations you might offer? Thanks."
That's a good question. I hope he's watching. The thing I would do is reach out to farmers and see if, I don't know if you have any dairy farmers, you have any type of farmer, cattle farmer, corn farmer. I know some of the ones that get sprayed aren't the most ideal, but a lot of times there's some land that isn't really good for row cropping or whatever they're doing, and it's off to the side, and it's a good area for bees sometimes. And farmers is what I recommend. It doesn't always have to be big farmers either. There's sometimes folks that are a small farmer running maybe stuff for a produce stand or a farmer's market. These people are usually more open to people like you. Now, I don't understand your plight though with a density. I've seen that. I've gone to places down in Florida. I've gone to places in Texas and Louisiana where the density of beekeepers is way greater than what we have here in Tennessee. And so I've never had to deal with that. I don't really have a good solution for that. Usually that means if there's a lot of beekeepers around you, it's a good location to keep bees, though. So it's usually yin and yang with that because the most dense areas with bees in the US are typically some of the best habitats for bees. And so that's why commercial beekeepers put bees there. All right. So, what time of year is best to induce a brood break for varroa? There's a couple times of the year, Christopher. So, one is wintertime. I know this sounds really bizarre to a lot of people, and people, man, they get really upset with me over this because it just defies all the beginner bee books they've ever read. But you can get into a colony when it's 40 degrees, 30 degrees, and open them up. Oh, there's a patch of brood that big on each side, and pull it out, shake the bees off, and put it in your freezer or just let it sit out for a while. But you want to make sure you kill those mites. And then you do oxalic acid vapor. One of the biggest issues with oxalic acid vapor, especially in some of the more southern areas, but even in Tennessee and places north of me, it's common for bees to keep a handful of brood during most of the winter months. And this makes it to where you can't get 100% of the mites or even 90% of the mites that you're trying to with oxalic acid vapor. Or if you're not trying to do a treatment, Christopher, if you're just trying to create a brood break, you still need to get rid of all the brood, right? So you'd want to, you can go in wintertime and do that. And that's practiced by advanced beekeepers in multiple countries and works quite well. And then in the summertime, I don't know what your area is like, but in Tennessee, my dearth period starts the second week of June. I would not want to do this in a dearth period if I could avoid it. What I would, or if I did, it would be at the earliest part of it. What would be good, and my thoughts would be to do it right before the dearth period starts. But I just want to watch robbing. That's the main thing is I want to watch the robbing with it. So if you could be quick and not start robbing, that would be a good time. You don't want to do it before your honey flow. So I'm thinking the tail end of your honey flow. The problem is you have honey supers on, so that's super inconvenient. But then if you wait till the robbing season starts, yeah, it's more convenient to get to the queen, but it also can be it's more stressful during that period as well. And what you can end up losing queens during those stressful periods. So um, a lot of times I find requeening works better anyways than caging a queen for a while. So I'm not an expert with it. I know enough about it. I've done it a little bit here and there, but most of what I know is from people who practice it. Some of them do hundreds of colonies that way. I ought to bring one of those people on, Chris. That would be good. The expo was so fun. My first time attending, and it was thoroughly enjoyable. Thank you for all the work. Hey, thank you for saying that. We really appreciate folks who give us their first year experience because we have a lot of people who've been to 3 expos. Some of them have been to every show. I'm talking to you, Larry, Cameron, Johnny, Tanner, of course, Barry Brown, and most of our team that's been with us since the beginning. And so it's nice to kind of hear from someone who has a really fresh perspective on how we're doing. And we have a lot of ideas on how to make it even better. And so bringing Josh on board and allowing Chris and I to do more as well is going to create more opportunities. I thought the North American Honey Bar was my favorite addition this year, and we're problem solving a few other things as well. I want to say a quick thank you to Paul Martin. He said we spent too much money at the expo. How about Mr. Stepler as a guest? Well, that's a possibility. It's been a while, hasn't it? Yeah, who's Stepler? That's a good question. Yeah, well, sorry about all the money at the expo, but all those companies there, and oh, Josh says this is Josh Hager with Bearded Bee Works. He was with me on some of the round tables. I need to get Cayman a Bearded Bee Works hat so he doesn't have to wear that Kenny Rogers hat. What? That's not a Kenny Rogers hat. Honey Bar was great. Thanks for saying so. If this is Kenny Rogers, then I start singing. You got to know when to split them, know when to feed them, know when to do a walk away. and know when to run. I know the running part pretty well. Got a hole in the bee suit. First time attending the expo and thoroughly enjoyed it. So much knowledge under one roof. Thanks. And the exciting part is we are going to have the videos available probably in about a month. We still haven't got them rendered. They're being rendered right now, but that we don't do that. The professional team does that. They're working on that right now, and definitely want to get all that and then get it in a format to where you guys can enjoy it. We're looking at offering a couple options. Of course, there's going to be the digital free version that we've talked about that everyone gets. And we're trying to find a simple way to do that. But folks, you got to watch out for it, please, and try to get to it, because one of the things that's really hard on us is a lot of people don't use their code. They lose their code with the digital version, and then it's only one person to you, but to us, it's hundreds of people. And they're like, hey, I forgot forever to redeem my code. Hey, I forgot my password. Hey, this. And that really eats up a lot of our time throughout the year. And we're trying to figure out how to deal with that, because we can't move everything forward if we're dealing with questions. And maybe I need to hire my mother. But the problem of it is she doesn't have the tech ability to be able to handle those issues anyways, if I did. I do love you, Mom, but tech is not your thing. It's not your thing at all. It's not mine either. You must be the reason I'm not good with tech. Yeah. So it's going to be sent to the email that you got your ticket. So if it was huckleberry7069@gmail.com, then it would go to that, and it'll have a link. And there usually is like maybe some type like a video that's a step-by-step how to create a profile on our website for the Bee Expo, and then how to, you create a username, password type thing, and then you just go and watch the videos, just bam, 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 each one. And you can watch them as many times as you want. Take your time. Once you get logged in, just whenever you create your password and username, write it down. It's not like someone's going to be able to get into your bank account or anything like that. So write it down, put it on your wall, put it on your monitor, whatever. And you can watch those videos forever. Now, we're also going to offer a package. Now, this one is going to cost, because there is hardware involved. We are going to have physical copies that we're going to send out, and they're probably going to be around $40 because of getting a big flash drive, getting everything downloaded onto it, shipping, labels, all that kind of stuff. But you'll have a physical copy if you would prefer to purchase that versus your digital one. So that's up to everybody. And Philip Duncan brings up a good point. My club would like to buy the videos to use at our meetings. Can you explain how that will work? So, Philip, all you'll have to do for that is reach out to Chris. They will be online as well, I believe, or maybe you have to inquire and then reach out to Chris. It's a pretty simple process. We're going to be upgrading our system this year to where we'll have copies just on hand, and you'll be able to just say, Chris, hey, I'd like to get this for my bee club. We'll send you, a link to pay, or however that's going to go. Chris, you want to chime in here? Do you have you want to explain this a little bit better?
Sure. Yeah, I just figured I'd just let you just stumble on your words. It was fun.
I'm like getting a pinching here above my eye. Like,
I'm just sitting here drinking some wizard juice, so I'm just enjoying myself. By the way, fantastic. I love my mug still. If you haven't seen my handleless mug,
show it closer.
For the record, this was my friends over in Oberlin, Ohio, White Squirrel Pottery. We had a couple pottery places this year. I got to stick with my fellow Ohio people. Anyways, back to the video. So the important question. So this year, what we're going to do is we'll have a sign up for the code. So because we had so many people miss out on their code being sent, what we're going to do this year is it's kind of there's no extra cost still to get the digital copy. As Cayman pointed out, we will have, this one's not branded, but we're going to have branded flash drives for purchase. So you can take it home digitally. that will be an extra cost. But the free option with your ticket is online. And so what you'll do is we'll have a little form you fill out, just like your name, maybe ticket number, whatever. We'll verify that it's correct. And then what we'll do is we will then create the code for you and send it to you. What's been happening in the past is we'll spend, and I mean this literally, like 7 to 10 straight days of 8 hours entering codes straight. And then what'll happen, and there's no way to automate it, batch do it. Listen, I'm the wizard. There's no way to do it. It's awful. So we'll do that for literally 2 weeks straight.
A lot of it's none of it's your fault. It's just the way some things aren't compatible.
Correct. Yeah. It's just we want something specific. We can't get it. So we make all these codes. We make 3,800, 3,600 codes. And then when people forget them, there's no good way to go back and do it. So we have to recreate it again. So in order to fix that, as people request the code, again for free, we will then go ahead and create it and immediately send them reasonably immediately send them the email instead of batch sending out all the codes. We believe that'll be the more long-term smooth route. So that's how we'll
find out, won't we?
Yeah. And as Cayman kind of mentioned, the digital copies are tough. Squarespace's system has some shortcomings, unfortunately. So we are in the process of switching to physical media in a flash drive. No, we're not going back to DVDs or cassette tapes, but yeah, we'll eventually, I think, switch over to flash drives, being able to do that, and then people will have them. So, but for the club on the website, we'll have an option for you to purchase, just like we did in the years past. Purchase this year as well as all 3 years in a bundle discounted price on a flash drive for your club, and then I'll get it all assembled for you. You'll get a really cool little, like in the old days, with an insert. Yep.
An insert.
And I know it's really small, but
what
bear
we
with
need
me.
to do is make it like the old cassettes and CDs where it has like pictures and band art and all that kind of stuff.
Well, when you can fit that on here and tell me you don't need a magnifying glass to read people's names on that, I mean, like, holy crap.
Well, you're just gonna have to do more, and we'll just get Bob Benny, like a picture of him back in the 70s or something like that.
I'm sure Suzette could help us out with that.
Yeah, I'm sure she could. I would pay good money for that. I think a lot of people would.
Yeah. So a bee club can reach out that way. Like I said, we'll have it like a product on the website, and I'll let you answer that in 2 seconds. But then we'll yes. So Red Creek here. Sorry, I'll jump back to this one. So Red Creek asked if will be available on Drive. Yes. So we are going to have this year kind of like a blowout sale. So it'll include the last 3 years. So this year, 26, 25, and 24. So you will be able to buy that. And again, kind of like a bundle package. Just like the overhead cost we have with an attendee who comes for 1 day versus 3, we still have virtually the same overhead cost.
Yeah.
With the flash drive, whether you buy 1 year or 3 years, the overhead is almost identical. So
pretty similar, yeah.
So that's where, you will get a discount because the overhead is still a lot for just one flash drive, including shipping and the flash drive, blah, blah, blah. So, we'd love to get the videos in people's hands. A lot of people
in your bee clubs and your,
yes.
That's been increasingly more popular because, some bee clubs, are looking for new material. And sometimes, I'm going and speaking in Crossville, Tennessee, Thursday, as long as the weather holds up good. And so sometimes you can get somebody like that to show up, but sometimes you don't. And maybe you're wanting to supplement or something comes up and Cayman Reynolds can't make it because he gets, explosive diarrhea or something, just can't make it. And so you have emergency backup videos, and these are very nice, professionally recorded. So we do charge more for bee clubs because there's usually several members watching them. But, for a bee club, what was it last year, Chris, for one copy? Like, what was it, 175, I think?
Something
around you get like 30 hours of professional level stuff.
Each year is 30 hours. Here, real quick, Jason asked about Canadians getting hard copies. I just need to check on the logistics of that. So let me look into that. I'll punch it into my thing. And so obviously I'd say the easiest would be the digital copy, but I would assume shipping over something so small
Yeah.
wouldn't be a problem, but I'm not going to guarantee it. But we can
It
certainly look
probably will
into it.
just be a little bit more money.
Shipping,
It
yeah,
it might make the shipping 50% to 100% higher, but
yeah,
the shipping's not too bad on these things because they're so small and we're able to put them in a small envelope and all that kind of stuff. But it's just however you like to do it. Some people like having stuff on, the internet, and there's some people that we deal with that just hate that vehemently. So we want to have both options, and you will have both options this year, as long
sure.
as it has Fred Dunn and Randy McCaffrey tag teaming Cayman. Ha ha ha! Funny, funny. Yeah, that was really the first time that they went yeah and clapped. That one was funny. The second time it started hurting my feelings a little bit. I really enjoyed meeting some of the folks I follow regularly on YouTube, and getting to chat with industry giants like Ray Olivares was worth the price of admission. Thanks, Huff's Honeybees. We appreciate you coming in for saying that. That really, that kind of feedback is important to helping us gauge what we're doing right, what we can, and then do more of. Ray, Chris and I are actually going to be visiting him in March, and so we'll be flying out to Orland, California, and we'll be showcasing his operation, the Golden West Queens, the Saskatraz Queens, and the other things that we're doing. We're going to be just seeing all kinds of stuff of what they're doing out there, and it's going to be really awesome. It's neat to see a family operation work, and that's what most of this industry is. Even the big commercial guys that some of the hobbyists poo-poo. Yeah, there's a couple bad apples, but there's also a handful of bad apples in the hobbyist and the sideliner crowd too, and you know who they are. And the same way with commercial beekeepers, but most of the ones that you never hear about are really good beekeeping families, and there's some of them like the Olivares family, and yeah, you've heard about them, most of you. And so I'm excited about what they're doing with the Golden West program. Second Expo, it was wonderful having Man Lake have a shipping booth. I got to buy things I would not been able to carry on the flight home. Hey Gigi, thanks for coming back. I remember the previous year was your first year, and we were kind of thinking of people like you because I mean, sometimes you just see something that's really unique there. And Man Lake, we've been looking to do that in the past, but really hadn't been able to find a way to get it done because unfortunately we don't have the team, and nor do we have the experience to do something like that ourselves. And so them stepping up and doing that was a really great addition, and I appreciate Man Lake doing that. I've had a lot of good feedback on that, and I talked to one of the big reps at Man Lake the other day, and they were like, "That was a great thing. We felt like it went smooth," because I was concerned, well, maybe the attendees loved it, but they hated it on their end. It caused a lot of problems. But they said, no, it went really good on their end, and that they're really looking forward to doing it bigger and better next year. So that's what I like to hear. So Brenda said, "Can I do an OA treatment now?" Oh yeah, you can pretty much do an OA treatment most times. Um, there's a couple of things you want to watch out for. So I never want to do an oxalic acid treatment if I know there's a virgin in the hive, because that can sometimes mess up a virgin queen and they'll attack her, ball her, not accept her, all that kind of stuff. Don't want to do it when there's a queen that hasn't been laying for at least a week. So if I introduce a queen, I like to wait about 8 days after I think that she's gotten out of the cage. I usually give 1 day for her to get out of the cage, and then 8 days later, I'll do an oxalic acid vapor treatment, and that works good. But in wintertime, Brenda, the thing you want to watch out for is it being too cold. Some beekeepers will do it in the 30s. I don't like to do that. And I get a lot of days in the 40s and the 40s and the 50s. I mean, it can be warmer than that too. But I want a looser cluster so I can really permeate through that and get that vapor in there. I'm finding 2 grams, no more than 3 grams per brood chamber is working very good for me. I usually set mine on 5 grams for a double deep, get 2.5 grams, and that does a great job for me. And these new vaporizers from like the Instant Vap company, they've got a lot of research on them now, and they're just a lot more efficient and protect the oxalic acid a lot better than the old models did, and some of them still do. Cayman, talk a little bit about drawing comb by placing a couple of frames of wax foundation and a super withdrawn comb. Does it really work that slick? Great Expo. Thanks to all that made it happen. Hey, Keith, thanks for coming again. And I appreciate you introducing Frederick Dunn. That was awesome. I figured it'd work out pretty good, and that's what we want to do more of, and we try to keep doing is we don't have to be too uptight and too professional. We want to have some fun, and so I appreciate you having some fun with us. So drawing comb by placing a couple of frames of wax foundation in a super with drawn comb. Yeah. So I haven't done this as much as some people. Gus Mitchell, Dave Hansberry are a couple of names that I think of. But so I've got some foundation over there, and you can do a medium frame. You can do whatever you want. You can even do a 1 inch strip to get them started and let them do foundationless the rest of the way down. After doing that for a while, that works really good. But I really think if you're going to do it in between a super of drawn comb, you really want to. Okay. So, and I don't. I'm assuming you're wanting to do this for comb honey. I could be wrong because you said waxed foundation. So maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Keith. But if you want to do comb honey in your supers, I'm going to want to do full sheets of foundation because I've found, and several other guys have as well, that if it's fresh wax foundation, they'll draw that more uniformly and quicker than they will having to just start from a little strip and work its way down. And I think it's important also with it helps with the bee space issues with having combs versus having a frame of just foundation. But two frames per super is what I've tried and what a couple other people have tried and implement, and it seems to work pretty good. If Dave Hansberry's in here, he could probably give better tips than I could. We need to get Dave on a live chat, Chris. Dave would be a good one. Let's make a note of that, Chris. Let's get Dave on here. We'll ask him that question. Oh, you want waxed plastic foundation? Okay. Well, that's a whole nother can of worms. We still want to get Dave on here. So I know really good. I do this with every honey super. So I run 9 frames in a medium super. That's where all my honey supers are. And I put 7 combs and 2 foundations in each one. And this is getting me a lot more foundation. And also it's not as hard on the bees as a full box of foundation. And Ian said this and several other people have before, but essentially whenever bees hit a solid box of foundation, it really just slows them down a bit. They don't like to go through it. It's more discouraging than having a bunch of comb up in there and they're actively working, and then there's just a couple that they need to draw. And so this has worked really good for me. Now, what I want to do, Keith, is I want to have some really nice waxed foundation. It doesn't need to be old stuff. It doesn't need to be a one coat of foundation. This, in my opinion, it needs to be a really nice coat on there, but it doesn't need to be stupid. So a good double wax works really good in a honey flow. I usually just get my kids to wax it. I always have a bunch of beeswax, and that extra wax coat, I have great results. I must have drawn out 6 per hive, over 1,000 medium combs this year. And I didn't even really need most of them. I have too much comb. And now that I'm downsizing, I'm like, what am I going to do with all this? But it's a good problem to have because you always, lose a comb or two each year. And, the extraction line, you drop one, ear busts off, whatever. But I put them evenly in there as far as I'll put like 2 frames of comb in the middle, 1 frame of foundation, another frame of foundation, and then the other 5, just as they should be, and just equal amount. I have great results with that. I'm going to be doing that forever. All right. More questions, Chris. Do you have the dates for the 2027 North American Honeybee Expo? I don't. We were supposed to meet Friday and something came up and we've been put off till Monday. So Monday, Chris and I are going to be on a meeting with the KEC and we're going to discuss things. And for the record, we really like the KEC. They're not perfect. We're not either. But the people that we work with on a high level are great to work with. And our event manager is great. And so all that is really nice. Our audiovisual guys are awesome. And we're really learning the facility really well. And Kentucky is centrally located, which is great for a lot of people driving. The airport access, and what I really love is the fact that you have that nice big perimeter around it. There's pretty good security there. We feel very comfortable in that location, and we're learning a lot about it. The biggest problem we had was the food vendors this year, and I know some of you are going to agree with that, and maybe I shouldn't have brought it up, but you can't dislike it more than we did. That's for sure. I was getting emails from them. Chris and I were getting emails. And it's New Year's Eve, and it's like 8 p.m. my time, 6 p.m., something crazy. New Year's Eve, and they're like, "Yeah, here's the information you've been trying to get for half a year, the sign, and all of that," and then it's just crazy. And they show up and they start badgering our vendors. Hey, have you signed out this paperwork? Where's a W-9? Where's this license and that? And without giving us any warning. We've never had to do that in the past, and they should have let us know beforehand. So that's part of the things that we've already brought up, and we'll be bringing up in negotiations. That food group is out of control. I probably should just keep a lot of this stuff to myself. It might be boring to you all. To me, it's really important, and we're trying to create a conference with as little stress as possible. But it is what it is. Pick Maine. Dang it. If Maine only had 2 months of good weather, we could have it up there.
Do you think they have like bottomless lobster we could have? Because then
bottomless lobster.
I think a lot of people would be really enticed if you had like bottomless lobster and butter.
Yeah,
you'd probably really get some people.
I'm sure we can entice a lot of people in January to go to Maine. My dad actually has to go to Maine periodically for work. Probably 2 or 3 times a year. He goes up there and makes sure they're doing their job and gets things straightened out and whatnot. And of course, he always sends me pictures of all the Maine lobster that he gets and all kinds of different things. And so I've learned a lot about Maine. And one of our staff, Rainier Ike, who also was one of our next gen in the past, now he's pretty much working a commercial operation with the guy he works for and his bees on the side. I've learned a lot about Maine. It sounds like a really neat place. A lot of beautiful country and stuff like that. But no, there's not a chance. You have a better chance than Rhode Island. How's that? Bottomless tacos, California, baby. Hey, I've been to California a couple times. They have really good taco trucks and just food trucks, period.
And I mean, we can agree we could have to share some margaritas too. I mean, if we're gonna go tacos, we got to also just go all the way in.
Yeah, I'd be in trouble. I don't know if I can do something like a California margarita. But Jose, we are going to be coming out in March. So first week is what the plan is at this point. And so Jose, maybe we can hook up and get together, and I hope to see you there. That would be fun to meet you in your backyard. Let's see. I had some wax moth damage on some super frames. Will the bees fix it? Damage is not too bad. Hey, Anderson Homestead, I actually saw some in one of my supers in my shed. It's just a few tunnels here and there, really small patches. If you put that one on, wait till there's a honey flow going for that one. So if it's really light damage, the bees are totally going to fix it. But my recommendation with that kind of stuff is if you have other ones, put them on early, because the bees are going to polish and clean those and everything. And then I would wait till the honey flow started, because I want to have some honey supers on 2 weeks before the flow starts. So they get them clean, they get them ready, and they're also depositing a little bit of nectar up in there. They're already starting. They're just super familiar with it. And as soon as that nectar flow hits, they're just already going right to it, just boom. But if you put a super that's slightly damaged on 2 weeks early, there's no flow. They may not be making wax at that point. And so they may not fix it quite as well. And I have found that if you save those back and wait till the flow is going and they're already making this wax anyways, you put those on, they just patch it up really, really well. A lot better than if it's in a period of dearth. Huh, think of the money vendors would make if you gave attendees bottomless margaritas. See, Eric, you're thinking like a vendor, but you're not thinking like a showrunner. If I had bottomless margaritas, can you imagine the amount of vomit I'm going to have to clean up? I mean, and we've dealt with that kind of stuff before. I'm thinking, has anyone here ever played one of those like roller coaster tycoon games? I know a lot of you guys are older than me, and perhaps you've never played those before. Chris, you know what I'm talking about.
I knew. I had to unmute just to chime in, and oh boy, you're not wrong.
Yeah, it's like roller coaster tycoon for beekeeping if you have endless margaritas. It's
That'd
not
be
going to be
something.
pretty. So this year, I think I spent as much feeding my 17-year-old grandson as I spent with John Hill. The food court was pricey for sure. Yeah, and unfortunately, that price really isn't something that we're going to see different. I didn't really see the prices being different as the year before. If it was, it wasn't much different. These kind of events are always have expensive food, all that kind of stuff. Hey, there we go. We got some roller coaster tycoon people in there.
Keith said it was a great game. See, look at that. We're
Hey,
really
I like that. Those are my kind of games. Age of Empires, roller coaster tycoon. And Laurel like calls me out on it. She's like, everything that you want to do for fun is still management, building, and basically work, and you take it to an unhealthy level. I'm
you
like,
know
well, what can I say? That's what I like to do. So
the janitorial staff would really love us if next to the popcorn we had a unlimited chips and salsa bar.
well,
We
if
would
we
be their favorite.
yeah, so if we can get like the some Mexican companies to come up and represent that part of North America, bring some honey, bring some chips and salsa, that would be really cool. Have some like legit stuff. We could work that out. Right now, someone like John Hill would do chips and salsa, and it would just be like the Americanized version of chicken chips and salsa. It wouldn't be that great. I hope John's watching. Well, yeah, that's a good point. It is the bourbon capital of the world. I get every year I get gifted bourbon stuff. I get whiskey, I get brandy and all kinds of stuff. And I come from a family that doesn't drink. And so, I'm just not it's not in my DNA. Um, that bourbon is a wallpaper remover is what that stuff is. That stuff is so strong. I don't know how.
You're talking the brandy, the plum brandy.
No, that
Oh,
that
bourbon. Okay.
bourbon, I'm not accustomed to any of those things. They're so dry and they're so potent. I could throw it in my truck and run off of it. Of
The
course,
the, pl- the plum
I'm
brandy you definitely could.
I'm a wuss though. Yeah, no, I have not finished it. Um,
You could
I
run your truck off of it.
Yeah, well, and it's got a lot. It's got to me a better flavor than bourbon, but I don't drink that much. And I usually don't talk about this kind of stuff. So sorry for anyone who this might hurt their feelings, but I do have something every blue moon, but it's just not a regular thing for me. And my wife has made several good points that I'm already stupid enough without any encouragement, and so she wants to keep that to a minimum. And if my mother's watching this, yes, mom, I'm being responsible. I swear. Speaking of all this stuff, I want to say a big thank you to all the people who brought me a lot of things like this hat, and I want to showcase a couple. Chris, go ahead and pull that one back up, and we'll knock it out first. Hi, Cayman. Thanks for trying our hot habanero. Oh, Sandy Valley honey. Well, perfect. This is a perfect segue. Look at this. I haven't tried this since the show, but honestly, I just got around to digging through all the stuff that I was given, and I wanted to showcase some of it in this video. So now's the time. Thanks for bringing this. They also gave me another jar of honey. I don't have that one up here, but this is one I tried, and it was really good. I think the habanero to me, I believe this is the habanero. Maybe it's not. Whatever they put in it was better than some of them I've tried for sure. I haven't tried this one yet. I want to say thanks to Michael Young, who did several of our lectures. He did the one on mead, and he did one on encaustic art, and I think did he do one on what? I know he did another one. It's all right. I heard really good things about his classes. I had to watch the videos afterwards. I don't get to attend unless I'm in the class. Okay, it was fresh cut habanero infused. Awesome. It is great. So this is some of the green honey. We had the swamp honey at the show, and I want to say a huge thank you uh, to the folks there. Smart Bee Apiary is, and they're down in Florida, and there's something down there that's turning their honey green, and they're trying to look into it and figure it out. I think they said that it has something to do with maybe the algae is what the theories are right now. I don't know what it is. It tastes good. It's just green. It's weird. And anyone who's watching that helped with the North American Honey Bar, thank you so much. Wasn't that was just so much fun. I got to try so many cool honeys, and I didn't even get around to everything. I also got some honey from Joel's Bees. He's one of our next gen, and I want to say thanks to his mother, Jeanette, and Caleb Kronk as well, because they really helped. They basically became staff and really helped us with a lot of logistics. Caleb was awesome, and so was Jeanette. And Joel was mostly doing bee stuff, but he did help from time to time. And it's really awesome to see young people like Caleb and Joel in our industry. It's you got to have it, and we need to do a better job. And that's one of the things we want to work on is more of that. So I was able to snag one of these, and this is some of the cream pal honey from Canada and from Quebec. Quebec. I can't say it right. I'm American. Quebec. And it is maple honey. They infuse maple into it, and it tastes like some of the maple donuts. Oh, you put this on a bagel. It is really good, and it's really smooth, and it just smells awesome. I love that. So let's see. I feel like I've got a couple more here. I've actually got several more. I just was only able to bring some of them in here. This is a jar from a gentleman who came all the way from Tanzania, which we usually say Tanzania. And I asked him, I'm like, how do you say it? And he's like, it's Tanzania. So the Tanzanian called it Tanzania. So I'm going to try to fix that. Tanzania. But we got a lot of countries where we need to sit down and actually, we've got the information. We just need to figure it out. But we had an amazing amount of countries this year represented at the show. And I want to say a big thank you to everyone who came from overseas, because I know that's even more logistics. And also got some of this greenish swamp looking honey from one of the Dakotas. I think it's North Dakota. Yeah, produced in North Dakota. And they've got it sent off to a lab to try to figure out why it's doing this. But that's really weird. It's kind of got like a greenish white weird. And I was thinking about going to one of the dinners, but we were just so exhausted. And several of our staff did go to them. My mom and we both just we just get wore out, and the noise, and Laurel felt the same way, and Josh and my brother Josh we hired, and my brother Ethan, we all just went back to the hotel, and we got Chinese. We ordered, yeah, the world that wasn't that cool? And we got some Chinese, and we had brought some of this honey from Australia, Hindmarsh honey, and they gave me some regular, and then they gave me this with the hot chilies, and we had it up there, and we were just eating through this Chinese food, and it just hit the spot for whatever reason, and it was quiet. And we were just talking about a couple of things, and we had the egg rolls, and there was no duck sauce, and I'm not usually a fan of that kind of stuff anyways, because who knows what's in it. And I said, wait a minute, I've got this. And let me tell you guys, the best combination I found with hot honey, seriously, is egg rolls and hot honey. It was a great combination. I can't wait to get egg rolls again and do that. So I want to say thank you for bringing this to me. I just remembered his name earlier today, and now I've lost it. It starts with an S, I think. Oh, well. There's a couple thousand people there. You'll have to forgive me for forgetting some. Todd Dow says first time attendee was good. Hilco was at the back, because if I put John near the front doors, she wouldn't be able to get in. Great for John. We bought a lot from him. Well, good deal. He does seem to always have a pretty busy booth, and he definitely puts a lot into the show. Okay, I'm way behind on questions. Have you heard about the new mite treatment by killing with heat by pulling the brood frames and going into a temperature box and then returning to a hive? Yes, I have, Chris, right. And actually, this has been done in Ireland and other countries in Europe for a couple of decades at the least. I remember reading about this when I was a teenager, so that's been a hot minute. So this isn't a new concept. The problem is it's laborious. One of the things I'm really concerned about with the Australians, and it's not they're not unique in this, so I'm not casting any blame, but they are humans like the rest of us, and we didn't learn very well from Europe because they got varroa mites before we did, and we had to learn a lot of the things over that we shouldn't have had to learn over because we weren't paying enough attention. And back then, the communication wasn't as good in the 80s as it is now, the 80s and the 90s. But the it's 2026. The Australians really need to. There's several of them that are trying to go to some of these old-fashioned methods, and it doesn't mean that this doesn't work, Chris, but it's super laborious, it's not perfect, and some of the tools on heat treatment don't work. It needs to be very accurate, it's gonna be labor intensive, and it is gonna stress the hive out. So it is doable, but the temperature between what kills a mite and what kills the bee is very close, it's just a handful of degrees. And so if that thing's not just right, you're going to kill a bunch of bees in the process of it. So I know those chambers that they have are supposed to be dialed in and able to do that, but they're expensive and yeah, they're organic. So if you're willing to do it, it definitely will have an effect on the mite population if it's done properly. But some of the mite heaters I've seen over the years that are cheaper are not accurate and they cause problems. And even when they don't cause problems, if they're not good enough, they just don't kill the mites hardly at all, and then you just wasted a lot of money and you lose bees from it. So definitely be watching that. But as far as getting back to the Australians, I want them to be successful, and the main thing that they need to do is know this is going to be a process, and that they need to be already starting to monitor mites with mite washes multiple times a year. They need to learn in their specific part of Australia how the mite population is growing and do that for multiple years because in the United States, the difference between how mites work in Florida versus what they do in Wisconsin, California, whatever, there's a big difference in how long they reproduce and what they're going to do. So, and don't underestimate them. But there are tools out there that you can control these things with, and you can be very successful with varroa mites, but you are going to have to make conscious effort to study them. And the people I know who are massively successful, and I'm not just saying 20,000 hives, I know those guys too. I was on the phone with Dick Brickner today and his wife, Nita. Um, Dick and his wife have helped us at the show. They've been a part of us. They really help a lot of beekeepers in this area. He celebrated his 83rd birthday today, and I want to say a big thank you to his help, but also a happy birthday to him. And the reason I bring him up is because he runs 20 odd hives, and he averages like 2,000 pounds a year or very close. This last year was a tough year. He wasn't quite there, but he's very, very successful. And I think that's what most of you are wanting. You're not looking to have 200 hives, 10,000 hives, but you want to be able to have live bees and you want to be productive with them. I mean, imagine averaging just 80 pounds of honey per hive and then selling that for $10 a pound. That's $800. That's pretty good per hive, especially if you're preserving your equipment well and keeping your bees alive and not having to buy them. So Dick has done a really good job of not only producing honey, he just doesn't buy bees because he makes his own splits. He has insurance colonies and he monitors mite loads more than anybody that I know, and he keeps them low and is very successful. So anyone who's wanting to duplicate that success needs to follow the great queens, dead mites, and good nutrition. Those are the three things that you have to have. And then after that, we're going to need to teach you how to keep your bees from swarming because they're just going to want to do that. Hot honey on a cheeseburger. I'll take your word on that one. I don't know.
Came and I chimed in. I said I love to grill my bun, put a little bit of butter on there, throw the bun on the grill for a little while, and then it gets nice and crispy and on the edges especially. You slather some, I use Jake Osborne hot honey from the big KY down there, and it's nice. It actually kind of started to crystallize, so it's
Mhm.
almost like like a nice smoothable jelly,
Mhm.
and it's obviously honey, but it's fantastic. Hot honey on a cheeseburger is to die for.
Weird. That's what it is. It's weird, Chris. And you're,
No, stop it! Don't do
eh,
that.
now Laurel fries chicken and hot honey on fried chicken.
Oof, that sounds great.
That's really good. That's high living right there, and it's good and good for you. I mean, you need more peppers in your diet. It's good for your arteries, and you need more honey in your diet just because. Especially if you're buying my honey, you need as much of it as you can get. Do you have any plan for videos this year? We'd love a weekly video of Cayman wisdom like Bob. Well, I used to do 3 videos a week, and this conference has turned into a thing that's really wrecked a lot of my YouTube plans. And we were desperate. We're trying to. We used to work so many hours a week. I mean, it was nothing to work 70 hours, Laurel and I, a week. And the kids have gotten older. We want to spend more time with them. Sorghum on a cheeseburger. Get out of here. Who let that guy in? And so I do want to do more videos, and that's part of the reason we've hired Josh. We're also looking at possibly either contracting a little bit of work out and or some other ideas, because the stuff that we're trying to do is not very conducive to regular YouTube videos or beekeeping. It's frustrating because I like to do everything, but unfortunately, I only have so many hours in the week. I'm hoping that this year we can produce way more videos, and that is the plan. But we're going to have to, if we're going to produce the videos I want to produce, I'm going to need to hire probably someone in addition to Josh or contract out for that, because the expo it really takes 2 people year round to pull the thing off to what it needs to be done. And I really need to free up Laurel completely so she can just weigh in on the big stuff. And then her and I can also have more time with the kids and each other. Um, so that's the big goal this year. Chris and Josh, you're supposed to make my life happy, okay?
Make your life happy or your wife happy? Or yes?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, okay, just clarifying.
So I imagine that the pepper flakes are dried. Before most people put dry stuff, or partially dehydrated pepper flakes in there. And so if you added too much moisture to the honey, it would cause it to ferment. But peppers aren't a super high water content fruit, anyways. Yes, they are a fruit. And sorry, I went there. Plant nerd. But it shouldn't be a problem if you partially dry them or if you dehydrate them or freeze dry them. Are you going to make mead from the leftover honey at the honey bar? So yes, that is the plan. I have the honey, Chris. I need to get it to you. We'll get that Yahoo, as long as he's willing. We'll hire him to make that into mead and put it in the silent auction.
Yeah,
And
one
for the
one
kids.
batch will get us 24 bottles. I think about 24 bottles or maybe a little more. So
Yeah, so there might be a pretty good bit to go around.
yeah.
And eating honey on popcorn right now. Never had hot honey. Popcorn honey. Hot honey on French fries. What? See, and this is where it's hard for me because I was the kid that didn't like cakes. I still don't really like cakes. I don't like frosting. I wanted like the old fashioned chocolate chip cookies. That was about as rich as I could go. And my mom would make those with like whole wheat, dark chocolate, and just much more hearty chocolate chip cookies. And I like that bull crap you get at the store. And so I've just never been a super sweet person. So that kind of sounds awful, doesn't it? I guess I'm not that much of a sweet person, Chris.
Except
But
Marsha's Buckeyes, baby.
yeah, those are good, but they're still, I can't eat a lot of those. My kids devastate those a lot more than I do. Like they would eat the whole box in one day. It would kill me. Oh, I wish you guys could smell this maple creamed honey. It is amazing. And they actually sell, by the way, the mixture. This is the Cream Pal guys in Quebec, and they sell the mixture for this. So if you make creamed honey or whipped honey, you can actually make your own maple. And this is really good. If you like maple flavored stuff, that's really good. All right. So Josh Hager, he was at the show not only as a vendor, but also on stage with me and Bob and Blake. And he said fresh peppers will push the moisture too high pretty quick. So they need to be dried. All right, Chris, we have some beekeeping related questions because I have some things to talk about, but I want to get to the
Go ahead.
questions
I'll collect some. Go right ahead.
Okie doke. So we need to have a talk about things, and I've got to get my list out here because my brain's fried after the expo. So I did just want to quickly mention again the Midwest Honeybee Expo. I'll be speaking there, and that is going to be the 6th and 7th of February. Better get that one right. I was talking to someone like today about it, and they said the date otherwise, and so I just took their word for it. I truly did, and I didn't realize. I guess that's why I got to double check. We this time of the year, if it's necessary, you can get in and add mountain camp sugar bricks. My sugar bricks are 10 pounds of sugar to half a cup. You can even use a cup of water to that. Mix it in really good till it's like wet sand and pack it into trays. Put it in the oven at 180 degrees for an hour or two until it's a hard brick. And if you're not 100% sure if it's hard enough, try it out on your spouse and make sure that it's holding up properly. And make sure they're wearing a helmet, a really good one. Please don't do that. But it creates a hard sugar brick, and that works really well. It's very cheap, very affordable. Some people are like, well, Kama, what about the 180 degrees? What it does, a lot of the information on HMF forming, if you heat honey, sugar syrup or honey up too much, is going to cause problems. A lot of that is way overblown. It does happen, but people aren't sure how much it happens and to what extent. And so there's like any of it bad, don't do it. I've made sugar bricks for years. I know people have done it for longer than I have. No issues, zero, zilch, no issues at all. And so I don't care if the science says don't do it. It works. And then as far as like sugar syrup, I can't tell you how many times I've used boiling water at 212 degrees and added that to sugar. But my theory is that you're adding room temperature sugar. It quickly drops the temperature down, and it gets down fairly quickly. No issues, again, whatsoever. I use some immersion heaters. I heat my sugar syrup pretty hot, and my bees are fine. No issues whatsoever. Now, maybe if you're in an area where you've got bees overwintering without a cleansing flight for 3 months at a time, you're going to have to be a little bit more careful because there's some stuff you got to watch out for, but not in Tennessee, you don't. So that's where you have to be careful of YouTubers, because what works in Tennessee and Texas may not work in Wisconsin. But you can add those. I don't care if it's 40 degrees, 30 degrees, 20 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's a strong hive, you're not going to hurt it popping the lid, getting contact on it. Now, if you're pulling frames out, that's a problem. It's cold in the hive. It is freezing cold in your beehives. They do not heat the entire hive unless you have a massive colony in a very small container. And they still don't focus on trying to heat the whole space up. They're just trying to be efficient and heat the core of the cluster. So if it's 40 degrees out, the edges of your boxes are probably going to be 40 degrees. So the bees are already experiencing some of that. Sure, you're going to break the cluster up just a little bit, but if you just pop the lid, quickly throw a little bit of fondant, a little bit of sugar brick on them, it's not a problem. And the colonies you got to worry about are your little dink clusters that are 2 frames, 3 frames in size. We check all of our bees in November, and by November, I know what my colonies look like. By November, all of the old bees are gone. The bees that were foragers, what we have in November is what we're going to have to overwinter with. And so if I'm looking at them and going, this one's a 2 frame size colony, I'm just probably going to combine that with something else. Or you give it a shot and probably not a great chance, but it happens sometimes where they make it through. And but the clusters that I'm seeing right now that are the size of a basketball, they're going to look at this 5-degree weather we're fixing to get down in the single digits. They're going to look at this and they're going to laugh it off. Now, people are getting -20, -30, -40. That's a whole nother ball of wax. But a handful of days of single digits for a good, healthy colony with plenty of food next to it is not a big deal. It's just not. And so everyone needs to be focusing on healthier colonies, bigger clusters, and then you can relax a little bit more during wintertime. But sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And especially for new beekeepers, you don't know that yet, or you don't know what it takes to get there. You can do it, but just keep some fresh queens, plenty of nutrition, and keep those stressors low. I don't know what I'm going to do with all these darn bees. Um, okay, cold weather. Okay, I already talked about that. Whoops, that was taken care of. So, what about transitioning from winter to spring? What's that workload look like? And the timing's going to be different for everybody. But for me, maple pollen hits around the second week of February, and that's go time. It doesn't. The bees don't care. Once it's warm enough and the pollen is coming off of those maple trees, and they'll get a little bit of syrup, not syrup. They'll get a little bit of nectar, sometimes some sap as well from those maple trees, and that also can be beneficial. But if I get some 60-degree days and they're getting that pollen in, they are going to start brooding like crazy. And it doesn't matter if the next week it's going to drop down into the single digits. Those bees now have pollen. They are going to go forward and they want to. And so I don't try to feed pollen patties before then. I try to time it right at the same time or just slightly right after. And you're like, Cayman, why would you want to feed pollen patties? Some years you don't need to. Well, you don't ever really have to necessarily, but there are some bad years where they get that pollen and they don't get as much of it. Sometimes they'll get 5 days where they can forage for maple pollen and stuff. And that's great. And those years you're good. And then, 2 weeks later, it warms up again. They get a little bit more from henbit or whatever it is, dandelion, and you're in good shape. But some years you get just a little bit of that maple pollen and they're brooding heavily, and then they don't get another opportunity for 3 weeks. That's a really rough year. And so they've already committed to this brood. And that first round of brood is so critical to the trajectory of the colony and where it's going to go for the honey flow and anything else that you're trying to do. And so we go ahead and feed pollen patties to bolster this. And in the good years, we don't really need it. And then in the average years, it helps us a little bit. It mostly helps the weaker colonies who cannot take advantage of the pollens like the bigger colonies can, and probably don't have any leftover bee bread like some of the bigger colonies do as well. And then in the poor year where you get those terrible flows, the pollen patties can make a massive, massive difference on the overall production of your yard. So that's the beginning stage of what we consider our season. We're going to get into those hives, and I cannot wait for whenever that happens. It can't get here soon enough. I'm ready to get into some bees. This conference always makes me ready to get into some bees. Once it's out of the way, I can get back to what I want to do. And so then I'm also going to look at stores. I'm going to go, okay. And this is where having some sugar bricks, fondant, or whatever can be handy, because I guarantee you, if you have a bunch of hives, you're going to find one or two that's light. Even if you had them pretty heavy going into winter, there's always some of them that just manage it somehow. And so make sure that you feed them, because once they commit to that brood rearing, they need that. And they're also going to hold back on brood rearing to a degree as well if they know that they're a little light on stores. So give them that. And if it's warm enough in the 70s, I'll open feed 1-to-1 in February. And I know it's going to get stinking cold again for like a long time. It's going to have a lot of opportunities to get cold. Don't have any problems with it. We don't feed them a bunch. I'm looking for somewhere around a quart-ish per colony. Half a gallon works pretty good too. We're not doing this to add weight to them. We're adding this to help them make the jelly, because the pollen is critical for the brood food, but so is nectar. And sugar syrup really helps with that. and it also helps flush out any pathogens and stuff like that. So a lot of people think that we feed just because, I don't know, just because we just like to feed things to our bees. It's because it works really good when you use it properly. And so a lot of people will be like, well, you're adding moisture to your colony in February. You can't do that. Well, we do. And I used to be one of those people too, but we do. And so I bring this up because I want people to think outside of their comfort zone. And it doesn't mean you need to do these things. I'm not telling you, hey, go do this. You have to do this or you're an idiot. This is mainly an exercise. And just because you saw it on Facebook or in your beekeeping beginner book that you started out with does not mean that that's legit. I guarantee you that those colonies are going to burn all of that sugar syrup up so quickly. It's not going to be in the hive creating a lot of issues. We're not feeding them 2 gallons, and they're not putting it really in the combs, a quart or so, two quarts to a big, strong cluster rearing brood. That's immediately going to go into brood food. And they need that. The first thing your colonies do on a warm day in February or whenever it is, they're going to go out and they're going to hit water. They desperately need to go get a drink of water. And so water is critical for them in wintertime and year round. So that's the first step. Now, after we've gone a couple of weeks, the biggest of the colonies in early March for me, we're going to talk about maybe the 7th, 10th, 14th of March. In a warmer year, I'm going to start seeing the biggest colonies, maybe even wanting to make the early swarm cells. It'll be very early stage, but we're not experiencing that type of winter. It's just been a little bit cooler. It's been that way the last several years. We have more cooler years recently, but back around 2010, 2015, 2008, definitely, we were seeing a lot more warmer winters, and we were seeing stuff a week or two earlier. So you got to watch that kind of stuff. But what I want to do in those colonies, and I don't care if it's 60 degrees, 70 degrees, you can't leave brood out for 10 minutes unless they got a good covering of bees on them. But you go into those colonies and go, okay, this one's huge. It's way ahead of the rest of them. This is a good colony over here, but they're only about 7 frames of bees. And this one, oh man, it's like 16. We're going to go and pull 2 frames of capped brood, and we're going to distribute those. We want to pull those big colonies back in early March. And what we're equalizing the yard. This is massively helpful in every way, shape, and form. It helps get our smaller colonies to where they need to be so they can produce a crop. It keeps our bigger colonies from wanting to swarm early and we don't get a crop or a lessened crop. And we also are creating uniformity by equalizing the yard. So if we can do a good job with this, and it takes a couple years to get kind of a feel for it, then we can equalize the yard so good that at some point they're all very close in their same needs. And so, okay, they all need supers. Okay, they all need a split pulled off of them. Okay, they all need this. And so that really helps the beekeeper who's trying to be very systematic about it, especially if you're trying to manage a lot of colonies. These things are really important. So a good frame of capped brood on both sides, when that emerges out, is going to cover about 3 frames. So when you're giving a solid sheet of brood to another colony, what a big shot in the arm you're giving that colony, just to give them 1 frame of brood like that, where you're like, well, Cayman, I'm giving them 2 frames of brood, but they don't have enough bees to cover it. That is a good question. If you ask that one, you need to make sure that you're adding bees to also cover that brood. Because if you throw it in there and it just gets chilled, what good is that? It's no good. Thankfully, bees at that point are really good at accepting one another on these pollen flows. And what I would recommend is also having a little bit of sugar syrup and just spritz them. Just spritz the hive you're putting it in, spritz those bees, put them together, and shake at least 1 frame of bees, or keep the adhering bees on that brood that you add so it will stay warm. And that works phenomenally well. So those are the jobs that I'm looking to do. And of course, we're checking for stores. We're cleaning up any excess propolis and stuff like that, and a lot of different things. So that's what I'm looking to do. And then post that, we're basically springtime, and we need to pull a split from all the powerful colonies because they're going to want to swarm on us. And the best way to deter swarming is make a split. We get that, we can keep it or we can sell it later in April. So if you buy a nuke from us, that's when it's gonna be done, is sometime in mid to late March, depending on what time of how the year's going. And then that's gonna create income over there. That's gonna create insurance colonies over there, and that's also going to help us create a honey crop, because that's we're going to add some more space to that hive. So that's what I'm looking between now and the spring flow, which for me is the Fool's Day. April 1st is our typical begin of our honey flow, and which I think is perfectly fitting for beekeepers. All right, so we need to get to some questions, and then we'll wrap it up after we've done a handful of questions. Well, maybe do a couple dozen questions. Let's have some questions, Chris.
All right, one here out of Arkansas saying, my bees are still bringing in pollen as of yesterday. Is that normal in Arkansas? What does it do for the hive?
It probably is in Arkansas. There's beekeepers already raising queens in southern Georgia. And so, if I'm getting my average pollen date for maple the second week of February, you guys might be 2 weeks ahead of me. You also may have some witch hazel. There's some plants that are even earlier than maple. So yeah, southern states are already going to be starting. So the Georgia beekeepers and the Florida beekeepers and those southern states, I mean, it's go time. They're working bees down there already. And I think a lot of new beekeepers and hobby beekeepers that don't get access to this information don't realize how early you can start managing your bees. And that's okay. There's no reason you shouldn't be fooling with your bees at that time of the year. If they need food, if they need space, if they need help, that's what you're for, is to go in there and to help some of those colonies out, because nature's going to weed out these weak colonies. And as beekeepers, we're trying to defy nature by keeping every single one of them alive if we can. Wow. So getting some henbit pollen, Northwest Alabama. I love those little plants. They are just, I think one of the things I love about beekeeping is it really makes you appreciate and notice a lot of things that you just never saw before. And so you get to learn about a lot of these little humble plants that really contribute a lot. And henbit and dead nettle are two very cool plants and beautiful pollens. Yep, definitely keep them in contact with honey. And if it's warm enough and you're looking at the weather forecast, you look at the extended weather forecast, you're like, okay, it's going to be 50s or 60s for multiple days. If I'm looking at it like, oh, dang, it's 70 today, but it's going to be a high of 15 tomorrow, probably not going to get into those bees, unless I'm just cracking the lid, throwing a little bit of sugar brick or fondant, something light. I'm not actually breaking frames apart and really disrupting them. But I've never seen weather like that here. That's a big extreme. But use your judgment when it comes to the weather like that. And then you got people like this fella. Got the girls wrapped up yesterday due to the extreme cold here in Ontario. Negative 32 Celsius, 25 degrees Fahrenheit, negative 25. Had a great time at the Expo as a first timer. Hey, I really appreciate you coming to the show. And I appreciate all the Canadians that came. It is the North American Honeybee Expo, and we definitely had a lot of Canadian honeys this year. I was really impressed with all the short notice, how much Canadian honeys that we had. And we had our biggest group of Canadian vendors as well and attendees. So thanks for being one of those. And we look forward to having more Canadian honeys and things next year. No, we don't have the date yet. Chris may have already answered. Oh, yeah, Chris already did answer that. We're still working on the contract and all that kind of stuff, but we don't know for certain. But it is more likely than not it's going to be at the KEC again, and it's more likely than not that it'll be on the second week again. And the ABF has reached out to me. I want to say thanks to them for doing that. And they are on the third week this year. And so we're going to try to keep it on the same week so we don't, have, people want to go to both. It's not going to be an issue. Make it easier on the vendors. That'll be nice. Hey, Cayman, first year, your ice cream vendor had bourbon, chocolate, pecan, and it was great. They need to bring it back. Crazy Hive, Concord, North Carolina. Man, I didn't get any of the ice cream. I do like one or two of the flavors that they have. And I just totally forgot. I only made it into the food court once. I averaged about one meal a day at the Expo. There's just too much stuff going on that I have to get to. I don't just don't have time to eat. And a lot of times when you're just go like that, you just don't feel like eating as well. But the ice cream would have been nice and light. And I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'll have to try that next year. I'll try to be sure to make sure they have it. Let's see here. So this, Jason Seward mentions, my goal this year was not to let a hive go to winter unless it was a box packed wall to wall with bees. Didn't want to make the same mistake as last year. And so something that I tried and used to do, and I just didn't know, is I used to try to make these 5-frame nukes, because you would hear people talk about it online and Facebook and stuff, and like, okay, overwinter a 5-frame nuke. But the people who were doing it at a very high successful rate weren't quite getting all the information out there in a big public forum. A lot of it was on forums, but it just, everything gets diluted down by all the other people contributing to it. I'm not trying to be mean, but some people just don't know what they're talking about, even if they have good intentions. I think a lot of people do have good intentions, but if you're saying the wrong thing, it's still the wrong thing. And yes, you can be wrong. My wife tells me that from time to time. I make mistakes. And so I figured out, to have a good, successful overwinter nuke, because you can easily overwinter nukes in Tennessee, easily, but they don't go into winter with 5 frames of bees, because then you're going to have all the foragers die off, and then you're going to be left with a 3-frame cluster, a 2-frame cluster, and those really struggle. A healthy 3-frame does pretty well here, but I never can get over 60% 70% to succeed with that small of a cluster. Now, if I go into winter with a 6/6 nuke or a 5/5, and we're talking, we have 8 to 10 frames of bees going into winter, and then that condenses down into about 4.5, 4, 5 frames of a cluster winter bees. Well, now we can put all the food down to that bottom box, take the top box off, store it. And so they can really dominate that space. And you just make sure all those food frames down below have food and they're loaded. Those overwinter in Tennessee just as good as anything does. And they do fantastic. And so a lot of it is just understanding that I didn't understand the dynamics of how bees shrink back at that time. This was years ago, but still I lost a lot of bees I could have not lost. So just something to think about, something to plan for. Overwintering nukes in these splits is awesome, but don't try to make too many splits for what your bees can do for you. And you have to really know your area and its forage and how the bees grow in your area and the time that you have to grow them in order to be able to make small splits get to the point where they can overwinter at a high rate.
Cayman, I got a question for you here based on stuff you were talking about.
Oh.
Go ahead. You answer that one first. Go ahead.
Sorry. I'd already clicked it. So you bought a Hummer-Bee and now you're downsizing. So isn't that frustrating, Brandon? I've got a 650 with the 20-foot flatbed. I've got a Hummer-Bee. I've got all kinds of tools. I got enough equipment to probably run 600 or 700 colonies. I don't have quite enough honey supers for that, but I could get there pretty quickly. I can't find anybody to work full-time bees for me that I can trust to do a good job at it. So we tried that a little bit last year. It just didn't work out. But I'm still really good friends with the guy. It just ended up not working out. But the Hummer-Bee is massively useful still. We used it at the conference this year, and honestly, it's purchased by the Expo because we use it there, and it's a tax write-off. Trying to keep as much of Uncle Sam's money, hands off of my money, because I don't think he's going to spend it on productive things anyways. But yeah, so we still are going to be using it. And my plan is, I hope Laurel's not listening, but I'm kind of thinking that I'm going to run 60 production hives, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to split them and make 60 more hives and have 120 hives going into winter. They'll be to sell in the spring. I won't be keeping them for additional production hives, but I need to run more than 60 hives. I really do. Chris, you're sworn to secrecy. You're my buddy. You know this.
I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, that's good.
Here's my question for you. So what, this will make it universal for everybody. What environmental signals should a beekeeper look for coming out of winter And let's say they had 5 or 10 hives, and they're singles or doubles, doesn't
Hmm.
matter. And they open them up, and half of them are strong, half of them are weak in varying stages. At what point should they look to try to move and equalize
Hmm.
big
That's a
hives
great
with small
question.
hives?
Yeah, that's a really great question. That's the nuance right there. And so you definitely don't want to do that too early. You definitely want to let those big colonies get that first round of brood. They need to be growing. They need to have gotten a brood cycle in. And so I'm looking to do this sometime around probably a month after they start brooding heavily. The big girls do. And that's where, I've also been feeding them a little bit of pollen patties. I've been feeding them a little bit of sugar syrup if they need it on a warm day. Most of them don't. I really feed my bees up to the right weight. I had a good fall flow, got them up to weight. Most of them aren't going to need much feed. I'm just going to give them a little bit to stimulate and help them make the jelly. And I also, these are the critical times of the year. Let me grab this. In the spring, I'm a big believer in this kind of stuff for the critical times of the year. So that coming out of winter it's all math, and anything I can do to boost those bees and help that sugar syrup be as close to nectar as possible. And this is the product right here. This is what we call it rocket fuel, but it's Apis Biologics, and this is a good supplement. It's not the cheapest in the world, but it's literally designed to mimic nectar as closely as we can do it. And so I go ahead and put that in there and give those colonies a boost. And then that brood's gonna emerge out. We gotta make sure those big colonies can afford it. I want to see when I'm pulling those brood frames back, I'm looking at 6 frames of brood in there. They're not all gonna be capped. And if there's more than that, definitely. But I'm gonna pull a couple of frames back, and then I'm gonna give those over. But we definitely don't want to cut them too early. So wait till they definitely um, have some good forward momentum. And then I like to leave behind the younger brood. Again, this retards swarming. It also really helps the other colonies because we give them a frame of emerging bees within the course of 24, 48, and 72 hours, a lot of that brood is going to be emerged out, and they're going to have if that emerges out in 3 days, we're talking 3 more frames of bees just from one frame of capped brood that we give to these colonies. So it really helps. Now, here's a nuance as well. Sick colonies do not get help, not at this stage. Well, I've tried in the past, and if they have a poor queen, if they have too high of mite loads, if they have European foul brood or any type of issue like that, you're throwing pearls before swine at that point. So we need to see with these young colonies that they're doing a good job. The pattern might only be the size of a cantaloupe, but it needs to be uniform. They need to look healthy. They need to look like they're going forward. It just they're small because they're small. But if there's something wrong, you're just throwing pearls before swine. Do not waste your brood on those because they will shrink back, and they might chill that brood anyways. But if the queen's bad, if they have something that's keeping them down, you might give them a temporary boost, but they're just going to go right back to that position. And so we want to wait for that colony. We're going to see if it can clear it out on its own. If we have excess bees we don't know what to do with, we need to, yeah, we can give it to them, but I don't like throwing pearls before swine. So there's a Hive Alive product out there that is a liquid product. It's a very thick syrup. And I put those on in this kind of temperatures, 20 degrees Fahrenheit, poke a couple holes, and then just let them feed on it as they can access it. Never had an issue. But again, Tennessee, there's not a whole lot of moisture content with those supplements. They're very thick syrups. And you got to realize if you're not feeding a ton, it's not getting stored. It's going straight into the bee's body and they're burning it just like you're throwing firewood into a wood stove. So, if you're feeding tons of it, that might be a little bit different, but bees are really going to any strong colony will definitely handle it just fine. But you can the easiest thing to do as far as what's easiest on the bees, what's easiest for you, is fondant. Fondant really is the best emergency feed. It's quick for the bees to access. It's soft enough for them to easily access it. They don't have to work as hard for it. The sugar bricks work very good, and mountain camp sugar and candy boards are all very hard sugar. And it takes a lot more energy for them to break that down. But it totally works too, and big colonies do just fine with it. And it's way more affordable. So that's basically how I toss that up. You have the more affordable homemade options that aren't quite as good, but they still work. And then you have the more expensive, but a little bit better fondant products out there. Oh, it won't hurt it, Eric. Sorry, it won't hurt it at all. Hey, I did see Hilco's auto chain uncapper. If so, thoughts? Can't wait on the list to get one. So, I haven't seen it in action. I looked at it, and honestly, I wasn't able to get a close look. I was just too busy running logistics and telling John to get his self out of my way and that kind of thing. But I am going to be seeing John at the Midwest Honeybee Expo. And I'll be talking to him about it then. He also is getting some of my honey. I have some supers sat back that are ready to be uncapped, and I'm going to be letting him use those so that he can trial some of this stuff out because he's still dialing a few of these things in. So I will probably know very full well shortly. I don't know when he's going to actually do it, but it'll probably be in the next month, and he's going to be running some supers through of mine, and I'll get to see how that works out. So I don't know. I do like seeing a new uncapping systems for mid to small size beekeepers. There definitely needed to be more. Oh, see you later, Randy. He's heading out. It's past Randy's bedtime. Let's see. If you have a mean hive and you kill the queen and let them raise their own queen, since she's meeting with many other drones, would it tame the hive down? Maybe. And so that's the problem. Is it only takes one drone or one little bit of that to really cause problems. So if you think about it like this, Chris, let's say it's the heat of the season and the queen's pumping out 2,000 a day. It only takes one drone that crosses with that queen a certain way, and if she's already got some of that genetics from the mother or the drone fathers that she had, whatever, then there's a higher likelihood of that happening again. And then if all it takes is one drone, even if it's a queen that hasn't exhibited that behavior, because 2,000 eggs a day, let's say each drone that she mated with is representing 50 bees a day. Well, over a 10-day period, that's 500 hot bees. How many bees does it take to annoy you in the bee yard? 500 will definitely do it. And so it doesn't take much, is what I'm saying. So sometimes you might have luck with that. I would say on average, probably not a very good chance. Hot hives, I just got to get them out. I want those genetics completely out of the apiary. Maybe there's a swarm cell or a cap cell from another colony at some point you shift over, requeen it that away from a good gentle colony, or maybe you purchase a queen. Ian Stepler's honey was way better than you said it was. Clay, you're just a Ian Stepler homer, and I know you're a fan, but come on, it wasn't that good. I mean, it was good. It wasn't bad. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I've heard some bad things about canola honey. It's no Tennessee honey, and it's no Silent City honey. Forest Home Cemetery. I guess these bees are in a cemetery. This is one of the I tried a lot of different honeys at the show this year. This one right here is one of the best honeys I've ever tried. I don't know who these people are. You can see there's like wax in it and stuff. It's very raw. It's very light. It's lighter than actually what it looks like in the video. And that has got one of the most floral and fruit-like aftertastes that I've experienced in honey. Fantastic. So there's just too many good honeys out there. But Ian's doesn't have honey like this, and I know that it's canola honey, and he doesn't care. He's just going to ship it off in a barrel anyways. All right. We're just going to take the last couple of questions, and I'm going to head out of here and rest my voice. Do I have this? every Saturday? If so, at what time? I don't. And so that's something we're also going to try to work on. I've got a list of people I want to bring on and interview, and we're going to try to do a lot better. The problem of it is I do a lot of stuff. So I'm doing speaking gigs on weekends. I'm going and working with organizations within the bee industry to try to develop product and consult from time to time. A lot of this stuff, I'm lucky if I break even. I'm sometimes I actually make some money. That's very, very rare for me to do it like that. I want to get video content. And so a lot of the stuff I just do for them to try, send me out there and travel. But I want to do that stuff. I want to bring that information to the bee world and also for my show. So it's hard to pin me down. That's basically what I'm saying. It's really hard to pin down a weekend where I'm available. Chris, we need to do a better job of that. It's your mission this year to make that more concise and more uniform, that these folks can actually know when I'm going to have these next. So if it doesn't
Okay.
work out, everybody, it's Chris's fault.
Consider it done. Hey, real quick, your honey that you pointed out, the Silent City honey. It's a special honey harvested from the hives of Forest Home Cemetery in Milwaukee. Forest Home Cemetery is a level 2 accredited arboretum, which lends its green taste to this honey. Green taste. To the honey.
Arboretum, is it like an arborist?
Yes. Proceeds from the sale go to the cemetery, which is a non-profit organization.
That's cool.
Yeah, so if you look up
this honey's to die for.
Yeah, this honey
Chris.
comes from Fairy Garden Hives. And you're going to laugh because it was sent to me by none other than our favorite beekeeper out of Arkansas, Mr. Sean. So he actually sent me the link for it, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "I didn't see this." And he said, "Yeah, it was amazing honey." So I actually have the link in my messages from him.
Well, that's the cool thing about the honey bar is and also the honey swap that we have there and various things is you get exposed to a lot of the cool things in the industry. And that's what we're trying to do with the Bee Expo and this channel, is just to really make people think outside of the box. And hey, there's different ways to keep bees. And this is my way of keeping bees because that's all I know. I'm trying to learn every day. You guys some of you have taught me some things, and I'm trying to learn all the time. I want to just get better and to share that with you guys. The Bee Expo, we wanted to get better, to create a better experience for all of us, and to get to try some new things and meet some new people and their honey from Milwaukee, and the hot honeys and swamp honeys, and even the maple. I mean, of course, this has to be from Canada if it's maple flavored. I mean, if it's really good. So this is quite good. Though some of the people in Vermont and Wisconsin may take issue with that. I mean, you're close enough. You kind of count almost, but well, Chris, I've talked a lot.
Yeah.
I've got to rest my voice.
Yep.
But everybody, thank you guys so much. Appreciate you coming on. Think about questions you have for the next live chat. We'll try to give you an early warning. It's really hard to plan these out long term, as my schedule is just ever changing, as new things are happening all the time, which is exciting and terrifying all at the same time. All right. You all take care. Have some questions for me in the next show. Good luck with your bees this season, and we'll see you in the next video.
Bye, everybody.